Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your hosts, Matt, Steve, and Jeff. G'day, guys.
Hey,
Back
guys.
for 2020. So it's good to be back.
Freudian slip there, but it's almost true, isn't it? With these anyway.
Yes. Well, this is the light and fluffy podcast. We're easing our way back into it. It's going to be a bit all over the place. It's going to be here, there, and everywhere. But we're just going to chin wag, have a chat, talk about what's been interesting, what's been happening. Some of it might be deep, some of it might be very fluffy and light. But
we've done a hell of a lot of prep for this, Jeff. You're making out as if we're just making this up off the top of our head.
Well, Steve has.
I stole this one off Steve.
And you know what is actually a little bit concerning is that I came in today wearing my nice new Navy ATP, and it looks like you guys want to get in the Navy as well too.
Yep. It smells so fresh out of the bag.
We're all in the Navy, boys, aren't we?
Oh.
Now you've just ruined it. Now I want to actually change my shirt. The reality is I was getting boob sweat. I trained. I've been getting some extra thermic effects from my training, and for no apparent reason. And then that was led to boob sweat.
True.
I considered Botox under there because apparently that works, but then I thought maybe I'll get really saggy boobs.
What I was going to say as well too is though you want to get in the Navy, but Steve, you want the Navy in you, don't you? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So starting with a fresh start to 2020. So, guys, what's been happening? What's on your mind?
It's 2020, so everyone's got these New Year's health resolutions. They look at the calendar and go, I need to change something in my life. I've got fat over Christmas. I've been watching too much cricket or footy or whatever, and they're overweight, and New Year's resolution is to get healthy and lose weight.
Well, the funny thing is most of the people that are fit and healthy typically take that period, or a lot of people take that period off to enjoy themselves, drink, party, eat lots of food, and then they go, great, I'm going to get back on track. A lot of the uninitiated, every year this time comes around and they go, right, this year's going to be different. Yep. And they get 5 minutes into it and go, bugger it, I've stuffed it already. I have to wait till 2021.
Yeah, well, that's what I got for Christmas. I got fat. I put on heaps of weight. Yeah, but the cool thing is we're 2020, it's a new decade. So we can go back and go, not just a normal New Year's resolution anymore. We'll go back and look at what we've learnt and go, right, we realise that most people do these resolutions around diet and exercise, or I'm not going to smoke, or I'm not going to drink, or I'm going to avoid these. Well, we've learnt that it's this massive need for a holistic approach. And the way to commit to anything, or the way to get results with any sort of process, is to actually commit to a holistic campaign. And so we're going to talk about some ways of doing that and having a good look at that sort of stuff. In amongst that, of course, a holistic campaign talks about plants, all right? The benefits of fruit and vegetables and nuts and seeds and all that sort of stuff. We're going to talk about fresh and local and how to make sure you can get those sort of things. Of course, I got a feeling it would lead into answering some of the questions we've been copping about.
Got to talk about Game Changers.
That Game Changers movie, and then there's other documentaries, Cowspiracies and Fats, and there's this big plant-based movement which we want to talk about today, and how we think you can do it properly, and
ugly,
and also point out a couple of the sneaky little tricks that people do to kind of push an agenda.
And one of the things I'm always going to talk about is the conspiracy around it, being the conspiracy theorist in the room, is that the fact that there's a lot of good information that's out there, or a lot of stuff is true or half true, but then it's twisted at the end for an agenda, and typically that is to depower people and or to try and sell something or impose a tax on somebody.
But in amongst it, some elements of truth.
Absolutely.
So you just got to find the goal.
Tell me the strongest lie, 95% truth. They just divert you at the end. Yeah. So there is a lot of good information out there, and we're going to talk about it from ATP's point of view.
Yes. And lifestyles too. We're going to about lifestyle change, simple things. Like we're going to talk about things like earthing, which I remember studying in naturopathy a million years ago, and I thought it was a bit wobbly with regard to its philosophy, but when you look at the data on it, it's quite clear in what it does.
Cool. Well, I don't even know what earthing is, so you can enlighten me, Steve.
The most simple thing you can do is go and stand on the earth.
Right, so you're talking about, and this is really interesting because we've been having a look a lot at, and we've been talking a lot about frequency with 5G, 4G. We've been talking about that, but also crystals. I mean, Matt and I were talking a lot about that as well too. Had some interesting stuff with the crystal that was given to my son, actually, which is really, really weird stuff. It's some almost supernatural, spiritual stuff happening, which is kind of weird as well too. So there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about that we talk about in science, and some, we can talk about that.
Well, crystals has a resonant frequency. They used to put them in radios. That was how you got
crystal
the
radio set, right?
And now the watches, isn't that the quartz watches. It's all based
you
on...
put a charge through it and it oscillates
resonates
at a frequency, and the frequency per wavelength is a second. And that's how we actually measure atomic clocks.
And we can measure our frequency. So there's when people talk about auras, and some people see auras, some people see colours, and if you're not capable of doing any of that sort of stuff, you can actually measure it. You can actually go and measure the frequency waves coming off the body to show that we do have this electronic field. But the reason why we started talking about grounding originally, Steve-O, is we're talking about ways of making sure people, if they're going to do a resolution and we're going to move towards these plant-based diets and we're really going to focus on fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds and that sort of stuff, the importance of getting it fresh and the importance of getting it local, and the best way to make sure you're getting that is to grow it yourself. Yes. So we're talking about the benefits of gardening, like starting the new year gardening and getting into these sort of habits where you're actually starting to work not only with the ground, so you're earthing, you get your hands and you get your body and your feet and you're down in amongst the ground, you're in amongst that microbiome, we're getting the bugs that we're supposed to be getting, so that actually relates through to the microbiome that goes and lives inside of our gut. So we can talk about gut health, we can talk about energetic aspects, and we can talk, when you talk about energetic aspects, we can talk about it on a spiritual level, a soul level, or a physics level, and it's all the same. We just choose different languages because we can talk about frequencies being measured, we can talk about charges that get can build up, can accumulate, can blockages. As we know, when you get behind every chemistry is physics. So for example, when we have a thought process, that's actually a calcium channel, which is a gate change, which is initiated by electrical changes and voltage either side of the membranes, which actually switch on and off cells. So all of this sort of stuff is totally linked. So some people can feel anxious and stressed and dissociated, and it can actually be relieved through grounding. And that grounding can be done through gardening, exercising, and all of this part of a lifestyle change that you might want to have, not just diet and exercise. So it's just important to see that. And a lot of people don't stick long-term with diet and exercise. One way to make sure you do is plant something that you've got to eat. Because when you have a look at the themes that we're seeing across all of these sort of health changing, the big epiphanies that everyone's happening is that fresh, local, plant-based foods. The people that eat less processed foods and the people that eat more natural, local and fresh stuff are the healthiest. Okay, and that's what all the epidemiological studies that they quote from all of these different game changers and fats and cowspiracies, they're all talking about processed American SAD diet. Standard American diet is a SAD diet, which is all full of processed foods, compared to people that eat a healthy lifestyle. Now, I'm not going to get too much involved in the fact that
we should do a full podcast.
Oh, we will. We'll do a full podcast because the reality of it is that simple core message has been hijacked to sell fake food, okay, which is highly processed, highly refined, and nothing to do with any of the studies they're talking about. Full of nitrate. So
you told me that. Give that real quick example.
A quick example while we're talking about it. So in the Game Changers movie, they listed off a couple of reasons. So they went and we all agreed it's so cool. Plant-based stuff like those foods we mentioned, fresh fruit, veg, nuts and seeds, that sort of stuff is great. And the people that eat most of that is good. The debate comes in is when they said, eliminate meat because it's evil for these reasons. One, environmental concerns, which we can get to at another time, because I don't know too much about all that. But TMAO, they mentioned TMAO, which is trimethylamyl oxide, I think that's how you say it, and nitrosamines. And they said they're the reasons why meat is bad and that even a small amount of meat will kill you because of those.
Nitrosamines in meat.
Now, the reality is there is no nitrosamines in meat. Normally, they're a preservative that's added to processed foods.
Right, like salamis, that sort of thing?
Or processed plant meat alternatives. There's more nitrosamines in the processed plant meat alternative because nitrosamines are flavour agents.
Right.
They're curing things. They add those smoky flavours. They add that nice savoury, that umami, but they're also preservatives and that sort of stuff. Interesting, they're also vasodilators. So most people that, if you react to nitrosamines, they're one of the vasoactive amines that cause migraines. They cause flushing and redness on the skin because what they do is they work as vasodilators. They're vasoactive. They make arteries throb.
So MSG's got to be one, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's glutamate. It's an excitatory neurotransmitter which drives vasodilation.
So they're basically saying it, and it's been linked in with bowel cancers and that sort of stuff, but they're saying that meat is where it's found. Well, it's not found in meat unless you add it. So it's processed meat. Now, interesting part, they talked about that early in the Game Changers movie
it's disappointing.
and why to do it. But later on, they tried to quickly distract us over here, shaking their hands around about something else, and then came back to a point where they were going to prove something, and they had to give enough sections away so people forgot about something or didn't research it too much. Because then what they did later on in the show, they were talking about woodies. They're basically saying blokes...
Erections.
Yeah. Saying there's a theory that men eat meat. You know, eating meat improves your libido and makes you more of a caveman and a real manly man. A lot of that came from the fact that Kellogg's invented cornflakes to suppress your libido and stop people from having meat for breakfast because you play with the devil's joystick all day, you know. So the Seventh-day Adventists, I think it was, that did the Kellogg's and that sort of stuff, went through and said that you got to suppress your libido by having cornflakes for breakfast. And that's what Kellogg's cornflakes were made, to suppress your libido so that you're not eating meat and eggs for breakfast and going out there like a real man, shag and stuff, and playing with the devil's joystick if you're not getting lucky.
It's funny because Steve and I were talking about... I don't
want to know about you and play to each other's devil's joysticks.
Okay, well then
I'm never going to go to Xbox night with you guys ever again. And then, so anyway, what they did is then they're saying it, but in reality, it's the plant-eating guys that have the most sexual prowess. Now, to prove it, what they did is they got the penis guy. That's what he calls himself.
Wow.
He wrote a book called The Penis Book. He says, I wrote the book on penis. So this guy's an expert when it comes to erections. That's what he's dedicated his life to, helping blokes.
I'm not a slouch either, you know.
No,
more
other
of a
people's
hobby.
erections.
Oh,
that's a hobby. All right. Anyway, I might direct this towards back to you, Steve.
I can't even make eye contact with you two anymore.
I know.
I don't like talking about
erections. It looks like Bob Dowd, which is terrible.
Don't look at me.
Now,
Don't look at me.
Look, I'm trying to explain this erection stuff, and it's already confusing enough because there's big words involved. Like big words. No, I can't put my hands up.
No.
Oh, I can't
what do you mean? I see.
Anyway,
knock on wood.
Okay.
Oh, God.
So, nitrosamines, as we said, preservatives, flavour enhancers. They're used in for the smoky, savoury awesomeness flavour. So what they did is to prove that plants give you more wood, you like that, than meat. So I just made that was like a witty pun on the way. No, didn't it? What? You made witty puns sound like a dirty word. Now listen, stop. God, fuck,
I haven't said anything.
So anyway, what they did is they gave these people a burrito to eat, and they made a big deal to say, we haven't stacked this study to give you the dodgy. We've given you the best meat we can, clean, unflavoured, grass-fed, organic meat. Basically saying meat with no nitrosamines. So we've given you meat with no nitrosamines to eat, and we're going to measure your woodies through the night, and they're this much.
How did they measure them exactly?
It's called,
they put a little sleeve around it. They actually had this thing that measured measured the length and the girth.
It's called noctilutumescence, if you want the technical.
No one wants that.
Noctilutumescence.
No one wants that.
I'm
adding that one to the list.
Now, the nitrosamines are vasodilated. The very short joke. It's like a one-liner, one letter. Anyway, so I can't work out where to put my hands when I talk about this. So anyway, they gave these guys a burrito with no preservatives in it, and measured their woodiness, and it was average. They then gave them a plant-based one, and they said, we specifically have given you the flavoursome, smoky barbecue flavoured meat alternative to real meat made from plants, and then measured their woodies. So what they actually did is they did a study confirming that there is nitrosamines in the plant. There's process. Stop looking at me like I'm trying to make a fucking serious scientific point here, and you're looking at me like I'm doing a dirty joke here.
No, I'm not.
I'm trying not, but it's really hard to talk penis in front of you.
Don't look at me.
I can't look at. I can't look at anyone. The only one I can look at is Vanessa because he's neutral.
He's non-gender specific.
He's non-gender specific, and he's hidden behind a camera. Now, no. So the point is to prove that they tried to prove that meat is damaging your sexual prowess, and plants would turn you into sexual tyrannosaurus. At the end of the day, what they were actually showing is that nitrosamines are vasodilators, and that meat preserved with nitrosamines might be a better way of having an erection, but that's not what they talked about. It was a total distraction. And the real reality is they don't avoid meat and clean, fresh, organic meat that's not processed and preserved to avoid nitrosamines and moving on to a plant-based meat alternative that is going to be flavoured up and preserved with nitrosamines. That's a total
bait and switch.
Bait and switch. That's exactly what it is. The other thing I said, the other reason why you've got to avoid meat is TMAO. TMAO is a byproduct. There's no TMAO in meat normally, unless it spoils a little bit. Because what it is,
deep sea fish, there's lots of it.
That's what actually fish. That's why fish smell fishy.
Yeah, that's why they smell fishy.
That's why fish smell fishy. It's kind of cool. The carnitine. So you know how. So remember when you work in a supplement store, every once in a while, some people come back and when I take carnitine, I smell like fish.
Yeah.
And some people used to probably say that from B complex vitamins and that sort of stuff as well. So carnitine and choline, when affected by certain bacteria, and it's by the bacteria, it converts to this stuff called TMAO. And then, so basically what we're looking at is anything that supplies carnitine or anything that supplies choline is potentially a source of TMAO if you have bad bugs in your guts.
Yep.
And the reason why meat and eggs will kill some people and other people it would actually lower their cholesterol and make them better is determined whether their choline and carnitine goes down a TMAO pathway or not. Yep. The way to fix TMAO is plant polyphenols, fresh, healthy plants. Back to where we started, fresh fruit, vegetables, and that sort of stuff. Now, if your choline is not just from eggs, choline comes from cereals and grains. In fact, whole grain bread is one of the best sources of choline you can get.
Yeah, right.
There's more in that if you're eating that as a staple part of your diet than someone's having a couple of eggs a day. So the reality is when you go take off all the animal protein and then substitute with a processed plant-based protein or protein alternative, meat alternatives, you're going to get more nitrosamines if it's a savoury flavoured product and preserved and then tried to form into like a resembling a meat, which still glorifies the slaughter of animals. I can't understand why they do that. But the other one is the TMAO could be coming from your choline. From your choline from your cereals and grains.
Absolutely.
And there's a shitload in that.
And of course, if you eat lots of cereals and grains, which a lot of Australians and Americans do, it could cause dysbiosis in your gut from just pushing sugars and carbohydrates down in your gut. It would cause dysbiosis.
Yeah.
You know, if you eat it every day, and a lot of people eat white bread every day.
Yeah. And now there's interestingly been some new changes into regards to choline in food supplements and everything, where you got to reduce the amount of choline because they think it's going to contribute to this heart disease. Where it's actually the amount that they're talking that you can put in supplements so tiny compared to what you get out of a staple food that we're encouraged to eat as part of the food pyramid.
10 milligrams. Is
Yeah.
But you can eat
it's
up
125 milligrams in one egg.
Yeah.
How much, sorry?
125 milligrams
you can
in an
eat
egg.
up to 3 grams a day.
Yeah, right.
But you're only to put 10 milligrams in a supplement. And that's what
Crazy.
people do for nootropics and all that sort of stuff, because choline makes acetylcholine, but not if it goes down and makes TMAO. So if you want those, but the thing is, and this is also garlic is one of the other ones that's really powerful at blocking TMAO production.
Yeah, right.
So the cool thing, and this is why garlic's always been good for your heart. And this is why there's always this mix your garlic with your meats. And I love seeing weird old recipes and things we do for a long time and we don't actually know why.
Yeah.
And even the fact that you eat enough garlic and it comes out through your skin, you know, you can smell it through your pores and that sort of stuff, you know, especially if you're a little puppy.
Love it. Love garlic.
You can put it in your shoes and you can smell it on your breath the next day, can't you?
Yeah.
It's strange, but it is a powerful compound. But again, just getting back to nature, that's what we've always talked about. The power of, you know, again, you look at your heroes of, you know, your herbs and your roots and that. Like garlic would have to be right up there along with your ginger.
But they're all the same. Like if you have a look at the herbs that block TMAO, things like yerba mate, very powerful. Fenugreek's very powerful. There's a lot of other, so your garlics, your ginger, a lot of the things that we just kind of add, just these other little flavour, a lot of the spices and that sort of stuff, very powerful at that.
These things you can grow in your garden too, these simple little herbs. This is what I love about it.
Yeah.
And the garden is the great place to start. For we talked about earthing, we talked about our microbiome. This is all in the garden.
Well, if you think about it, the process of gardening and eating fresh and local out of your garden, not only are we modifying our own microbiome by mucking around with the soil and that sort of stuff and getting the dirt on your hands. But that's where it all comes from.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that's why we don't have to necessarily be inoculated with these particular bugs. It's going to come from our environment. It's on our hands, it's on our food, it's in our soil. But not if everything's glyphosate and poisoned off everything that's good in the soil and then added nutrients into the soil. We're missing that microbiome compound. We did that study. No, we didn't do a study. We read that study about polyphenols. What was it? Within 14 days, there was an 80% reduction in the polyphenols, which are the volatile compounds found in the peels, that fragrance and that smell and the flavour. 80% reduction within 2 weeks. So the only way, and you manage your stuff out of your garden, and it's just constant supply of fresh, amazing food and the microbiome, and then honestly, man, these movies, just to finish off, I don't want to keep talking about, actually we'll do a proper podcast on it one day, but just as a general spoiler to what our podcast would say at the end is, like, follow the laws of nature, fresh, local, clean, healthy plants, of course, that we all know it's the healthiest food. I just suspect that adding some protein from animals that's clean and healthy, I believe would be a healthier diet than substituting that plant protein for a processed meat alternative made from legumes. And the reason why I say that, I follow that Simon Hill's Plant Proof and that sort of stuff. There's probably, I think there's a large percentage of his posts, probably over half of his posts, are little reminders to people that, hey, you don't have to dedicate time looking for protein. Like when we talk about meat, animal versus plant, we're often looking at about 10 to 15% of the protein of the grams being protein from vegetables, where we're looking at 20% to 25% from meat. So it's not that there's meat is protein and vegetables are carbs. Yeah. They're a combination of everything. So there's no need for you to go out of your way. This whole plant-based eating thing is not about eating plant protein. It's about eating fresh fruit, vegetables, nuts and seeds, and you'll get your protein out of that. Yeah. It's not about getting rid of the meat and eating something made from legumes to give you the protein. That's not what it's about. So eat healthy and avoid the dodgy processed stuff, whether it's processed meat or processed plants. It's the process that's crap.
And during our summit as well too, we had Simon and I forget the other gentleman's name. Drew. Yeah. And Drew's going to come on our podcast because he's going to talk specifically about how he went from being your everyday omnivore, how he changed to becoming a vegan, and how it worked amazingly for him. Now, Steve. Yeah. And the thing I want to clarify here as well too, you changed your diet around your ankylosing spondylitis.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you removed dairy out of your...
Dairy and grains.
Dairy and grains, right? Now that 100%, nobody can convince you otherwise, Steve, that worked for you.
Oh, it did. For me, I mean, I know how it worked now, but at the time, I thought this was the most stupid idea I've ever heard in my life. The naturopath gave me.
So one of the things that I want to hypothesize, I guess, a little bit is that in terms of with Drew as well too, is that 100%, that diet that he's eating is absolutely working for him. And I dare anybody to look at him and say, no, you'd be better off by adding this back in. Now, we are individuals. Yeah. We do have a different microbiome. Yeah. We interact with food differently. Tony's best friend, Jenny, cannot eat red meat. She is violently ill if she eats like steak or anything because her body can't process it, right? Now, sometimes that could be because you're missing things. And again, we talk about the organic acid test and we talk about, the Dutch test and all those sorts of things as well too. So sometimes you can find out if you're missing something and you can supplement with that or you can make changes. But ultimately, I think everybody has not one size fits all. Not just because Steve you've done it doesn't mean it's necessarily good for me. Correct. We know that there are generalities in terms of the way that food has been processed now. I mean, we talk about milk. I mean, we talk about the pasteurization and the way that milk is done now. It's not the same as our forefathers used to have. Correct. It. We talk about even grains and seeds, like things like what's that wheat that they made genetically modified?
Drum wheat.
The
high yield wheat.
And we used to get all of the husk and the I'm really struggling today. The
whole watching too. We were doing nothing to help.
Yeah. But all of the nutrients, it used to be stone ground, and we used to get the whole thing, milled up into
the minerals of the stone. Exactly. You see what happens to the stone over time.
So our food has changed, but this is what I'm trying to say, though, is that because people listen to us, are we for or against vegan diet if it works for you? Are we for or against omnivore diet if it works for you?
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is that just because somebody else's doesn't necessarily mean it will be the perfect fit for you, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't explore these things, or be at least have an open mind to explore and understand. Because I'm for whatever works, and everybody is different, so you've got to find what works for you.
Evidence-based. It's quite incredible. You talk about the microbiome.
Epigenetics. Yeah. When you link in your environment with your microbiome and your own genes, and how everyone responds slightly different to things.
It's incredible.
And it's a massive learning experience on a personal level, but also a lot of it's trial and error. And just like most things in life, once you think you've worked it out, it changes. Yeah. Because we're just a very small part of actually the environment that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. And eating a lot of plants that are grown in the ground has given us a microbiome that has about the same microbiome as the stuff in soil. Did you know that? Same numbers.
Really?
So soil and human gut contain approximately the same number of active microorganisms. But
per square?
Per gram. However, the human gut microbiome diversity is only 10% of that of the soil, and that was published in Microorganisms this year.
Why is that, Steve?
Because, of course, our crappy environment of killing our microbiome, they're saying we don't eat well enough.
They don't have the diversity in the food substrates. So on the soil,
talk about food diversity, but we also talk about the glyphosate. I mean, that to me is just terrifying because it's getting down into the waters.
Was that on? What was that paper? Does that paper mention? It wouldn't have mentioned anything about glyphosate in there.
This paper mentions glyphosate.
Okay, well, what's that do to the soil?
And I know that we beat up a lot
of
on glyphosate, and we talk a lot about it. The amount of lawsuits that are coming out of the woodwork right now. Bayer bought Monsanto, I think, last year or the year before. I reckon it's probably one of the worst things that they did for their share price because it's taken a massive hit because all of these lawsuits have just come out of the ground. We're talking about significant judgments about cancers and that sort of stuff. And I think even it's under review in many countries around the world now, exactly the warnings and sort of things that comes with it. And these are the sorts of things that we've been rabbiting on about for years.
Speaking of rabbiting on for years, is this is a paper on glyphosate and the soil microbiome. And basically it talks that you might think, it's going to be bad for it. This was published in 1981. It said it wipes out the microbiome in the soil, causes massive decrease in O2 uptake, because soil has microorganisms which takes up oxygen and pumps out carbon dioxide most of the time, except during a drought. It doesn't pump out CO2 then.
Oh, good for the environment.
Yeah. So as you know, the body has this. You can sequester carbon in soil due to the microbiome when you grow plants. That was an idea.
Is it linked with photosynthesis? What do they do at night?
Plants.
No, but so these bugs, so they're respiration, obviously. Yeah, they're sucking in oxygen and they're pumping out carbon dioxide.
That's right, little buggers.
All day
and all night, by the way, because the bugs are respiratory things like us.
How big is that compared to the carbon footprint of the planet? Like, do we know? Is there any studies on that?
Yeah, there is study. It is the most significant, and next to volcanoes is
termites.
And
cow farts and termites.
The difference is cow farts is methane. As opposed to carbon dioxide. As I said, I've got a massive bugbear with people carrying on about carbon dioxide as being a problem.
Well, it's not.
I am far more concerned in the environment for glyphosate. Yeah. To tell you the truth, over carbon dioxide, I'm far more concerned about carbon monoxide.
It's poisons for humans.
Heavy metals, that sort of stuff is what I'm more concerned.
Do you know what I'm freaking out about?
Yeah, okay.
This whole time, I've had this house plant. At night, it chokes me. It comes into my room, or it doesn't, but it just takes all the oxygen. So for and I didn't realise there was a lot of people. I actually made a comment on, there was one of these environmental posts about humans are going to kill the world because we breathe out carbon dioxide, but plants can save the world because they take that carbon dioxide in and breathe in oxygen. And I just made a comment saying, but when the sun goes down, they switch to respiration. Everyone thought I was trying to destroy the environment and the universe. So anyone out there that got offended by that comment, it meant no intention. I was just reminding you that when the sun goes down and photosynthesis stops, the plants then stop taking in carbon dioxide, pumping out oxygen, and they start taking in oxygen and pumping out carbon dioxide. So they're neutral.
They respire at night.
Yeah, you know what? Don't let science and facts get in the way of my new world religion, Matt.
Yeah, but
facts don't care about your feelings, as the famous saying goes. That's what I would have posted.
I can see you're an atheist where it comes to the planet, Steve. We have a planet.
I don't.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
It's funny because you mentioned
he doesn't believe in devil's advocate.
Well, that's true.
He's atheist.
So my argument is completely
means nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
It's funny because everyone blames CO2, but if I go back 3.5 billion years, can I? Can I
well, Steve, you can talk about that, but I believe in New Earth theory.
I don't actually believe you can.
Well, the CO2 levels many millions of years ago, or billions, whatever you look at, or thousands, was about 5%.
Right.
And now it's about 0.04%. And the planet temperature was around the same when it was 5%. This is not...
Is that why all the giants died?
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know when the giants died. we are in a, as far as the Earth's concerned, we are in a CO2 deficit at the moment. I know that's not popular to say.
CO2 deficit.
Oh, man,
we're only about 0.04% of the atmosphere, and it's been up to 5 to 1%, which is about 1,000 times higher.
But we're talking about carbon dioxide, right? Anyway, so in terms of plants then, is there a net production of oxygen from plants or carbon dioxide?
They net produce O2 because they sequester CO2 into the soil, and then the soil it takes up the carbon in the soil. It's called SOC, and then the bug takes the oxygen, combines with the carbon, and then releases CO2 into the atmosphere.
Because that's a microbiome.
Microbiome, yeah.
But plants.
What about?
Oh, plants net take up CO2. They
they're a carbon sink
unless they die. But when they do die, they usually end up as coal. Or the fossil fuels for the animals.
It's carbon.
Coal is 250 million year old plants.
Yeah,
it just sequesters in the soil down deep, and there's literally tons of coal.
You know what I mean? The plant itself is mainly carbon.
Yeah.
So the best way to have the plants that take up the most carbon are the growing ones.
Of course.
Not the big old ones that are sitting there growing really slowly.
And if you have a need to grow plants a lot, and I can't think of a reason why you want to grow plants a lot. I
want to eat them.
Yeah. Then you put them under a light and drip feed them water. And of course then they photosynthesize all day and all night.
Right. No, so this is where you much better for the environment. But what about the carbon footprint of that electricity providing a lot?
That's the problem. Well, now we're going to.
Oh my gosh! I said we didn't want to talk about the environment.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, that the plants do respire?
Well, I mean, just while we're on this, and we can segue back to this as well too. But one of the things that we wanted to you just said, it's annoying that they called those things segways.
I know, and how tempted are you just to push the policeman? Because when you lean back, they go backwards.
No, I'm not. I actually
imagine they come up to chase you, just push it.
Funny.
But in terms of obviously the impact on the environment at the moment, the bushfires happening in Australia, we should definitely talk about that. And it's funny because there's a lot of great charities out there at the moment that are supporting. One of the things that Tony saw, and she's recommending all of her friends to do, and we've done as well too, is actually go and buy directly from a lot of these businesses that are being impacted.
Yeah, and I've already planned our next holidays. We're going to do a big road trip. Our next holidays is all booked to do a road trip down, family road trip in a van, New South Wales, Victoria, stopping at every little place that we can.
Yep.
Give them our money. Nice. I did a trip around Australia once. I wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to go to Darwin for 4 weeks. And I flipped a coin when I was going to go home, and it told me to go to Broome instead. So it took me almost 12 months to go around Australia. But it took me, in the bottom corner of WA, there was little sections that I just got stuck for months because there's so many wicked little produce things and little shops, and when you're in no rush and you've got no timeline, you just stop everywhere. And that's a good way to support these people rebuilding.
Yeah, because I think Victoria as well too is saying that New South Wales is getting a lot of support, which is great.
Yeah.
Victoria also needs a bit more support as well too.
Well, Wires is one of the wildlife funds. That's New South Wales. So they're not
wildlife, the impact on and that really gets.
Massive. And
Tony doesn't like people, but she likes animals, so she's always talking about that, which I can understand. I mean, most people are dicks, let's face it. But
she'd love wombats at the moment. Did you hear what the wombats are doing? I love this. The wombats, they make these massive, for the international listeners in particular, wombats are big ass animals, but they burrow underground. They have these massive tunnels and cave systems underground. So when the fires are coming, they're relatively protected from that. Smoke goes upwards and all that sort of stuff. So they're good. But they've actually been bringing other animals in to protect them and shelter them into their little burrows. And now there's even evidence of people, they're herding them in. They're outside the burrows, yelling out. They got all the animals that normally kill them, because everything in Australia wants to kill you. Even the quokkas, as cute as they look, they want to kill you. They just can't.
That's a quokka.
Some of the old bilby. That's why the bilbies are almost gone, because they pick too many fights.
Because they got knives in their pouches.
Yeah. Why'd you call me Big Ears? And then. So that's another thing. I put up a post the other day because I saw a couple of other articles and a couple of other people sharing this information. Another thing, if you actually in the scrub and you're in the regions where these are affected, and you do come across a koala and that sort of stuff.
A lot of people, is fascinating.
There's a lot of photos of people showing how they're feeding these koalas water and that sort of stuff. Need to understand that koalas, they're like dogs, so they lap water out of puddles. They normally don't drink water.
No,
normally they
get
get
it from the leaves.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. They get
Koala
enough out of the
means
leaves.
seldom drink in Aboriginal, if you want to know.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry for the useless facts.
That's not useless.
It's not
That's
useless, it's
genuinely
excellent.
interesting.
It's an
Interesting.
observation. These things seldom drunk, so it's how the name koala.
Always stoned, though.
Yes.
Yeah. So they go through and they lap water out of puddles. So if you come across a koala and you've got a water bottle, do not, if they tilt their head back and you put water down, it goes into their lungs and they drown. So it's very important. Put it into a puddle or into your hand or into a bowl, or just spray it so they can lick it like you do with dogs under a tap and that sort of stuff, so you don't drown the koalas. So that's important. But what charities do you reckon? So,
well, just on that as well, you're saying that there's poor people that were out there trying to help koalas sort of being vilified a little bit.
But that was, I didn't even want, that was arsehole. They're typical media. They're trying to get a point
People
across.
are
Why don't you
trying to
just
help.
share the correct information instead of saying
they
that
have to
someone
sensationalise it and
have
make
to
people
a
feel
story.
angry, Anyway, so poor
So
people
anyway,
out there.
I tell you what, I saw some other good stuff that people are doing. I saw Critter and a couple of other guys, which are good local Aussie guys that used to work with Nutrition Warehouse and that sort of stuff. They went out, they're doing this thing called Blaze Aid. So I've been checking out where the Blaze Aid camps are. They look really cool, man. And if I was a personal trainer right now, I wouldn't be bothering doing burpees on the beach, man. Yardio's hardio for my cardio. Make that into a t-shirt and go join up Blaze Aid. Get your crew and go out and help the farmers rebuild the fencing, because the rest of us, we're giving a lot of money in. These guys are helping to pay. The insurance will probably come through. A lot of these people have got the stuff to rebuild their farm. They just don't have the labour force to actually rebuild these fencing. So Blaze Aid's something you can actually go in, and if you're ever worried, like a lot of people are sceptical with charities. They don't want to give money to charity. They don't know where their money's going and that sort of stuff. With something like Blaze Aid, you sign up, you can get into a camp, and you can just go in and commit your labour. You know exactly where your efforts are going, and then while you're there, maybe you could take some supplies and that sort of stuff to the local area, support the local businesses if you can find any, and that sort of stuff.
And on that too, man, I appreciate people can be sceptical at times of organised charities, but at the end of the day, the money does get there. They also need to, a lot of it's volunteer, but a lot of it is professionals out there supporting.
I always do Salvation Army. I'm a big fan of Salvos. They're on, everyone associated with Salvos on such a minimum wage. They live below the poverty line themselves. They're not taking a whole heap of money out of this business and that sort of stuff. Just like you're saying, you mentioned before, places like Victoria that have copped it a heap. When you give all your money to Wires is New South Wales. So you might want to then spread it around a little bit, look for some Victorian rural fire service, animal sort of rescue sort of things.
Well, what's really nice is there's a lot of shout outs from Australians, and this is a good thing about Australia. I mean, is that while we have to suffer with tall poppy, but when there's somebody that's down and out, Australians still pull together, which is excellent. And at the moment, there's a lot of shout outs for local businesses. And some people are coming back saying, that their business is struggling. They've had to shut the doors because of fire or access or anything like that. But they've still got their website open, and they're getting more orders, in a 2-hour period than what they've received for the entire year before, which is great.
Goosebumps there.
Yeah, which is what we need to do. So if you're listening to this, wherever you are, even if you're internationally, if you can support a small Australian business by, buying directly from them, it's an easy way, something that you can do that's not difficult, that would mean a lot to Australian businesses. I mean, Matt and I, Steve, we've all run businesses before, and we know how difficult it can be, and I couldn't imagine not only the loss and the the houses burning down, businesses burning down, the loss of a lot of people's dreams. By being able to support small businesses in those communities, that's going to make a massive impact. So direct action by going to those businesses and supporting them is a really good thing to do.
My mate, who's a volunteer firer, he's been for years in a little town called Talbot in central Victoria. And I grew up with him in primary school. He now works on the farm down there, and he just tells me stories about what's going on with it. It's not just affecting where people are burnt; it's the surrounding environment, because people are being taken away, so businesses are closing. It's really quite. It's devastating. It's like a virus that spreads.
Well, and not to mention the impact on the environment. I don't even want to talk about, and seeing some of the images I've seen of the
quality and all that sort of stuff.
That's bad. But also the amount of animals that have actually been killed as well. So it is just horrendous. But because
wildlife will come back. I mean, not the wildlife, the vegetation will come back better.
That's fine.
It'll actually thrive because of it. It's important to actually do burn-offs to get rid of the undergrowth. In fact, that was part of the problem, because part of the more recent environmental policies by the Australian government to look after the environment was to stop backburning and also to stop the grazing through a lot of the national parks, which increased the amount of undergrowth, and that combined with other factors contributed to the severity of the fires.
And hopefully out of this, thereul be a Royal Commission out of this for sure.
I hope there's no knee-jerk reactions.
No,
just to
Matt,
get votes.
I was going to say...
And that's what I want, because if you go through and say, like I said, this problem may have been made a little bit worse because of an environmental policy that wasn't thought through.
Well, that's typically what seems to happen.
I don't know everything about it.
No, and I was going to say as well too, Matt, I think at the moment, and I think already I'm hearing a lot of chatter around conspiracies and all sorts of things, right? But let's put that to the side and let's just focus on helping Australian, businesses and people and animals and supporting whatever we can. And then, dare I say, out of the ashes, then we can obviously start looking at what the problems was. And I believe there'll be a Royal Commission into this, and that there'll be some definite action that's taken, hopefully for the good, and we'll get the politics out of it. And the
increased awareness to the animals alone is a good thing, So we're going to get a lot of this investment that people have made through the charity will go to help the injured animals, but the best thing is what's going to happen after that. What sort of infrastructure? I love. There's a new one too. James Newbury and Brinkley Davies. I love Brinkley Davies. She's got this Barloo Blue, I think it's called. But I should have probably checked that name up properly. We'll add a link into something that some adult will do when I'm not here. But Brinkley Davies on Instagram, you can look it up, and there'll be links. And James Newbury's talking about it as well. But they're trying to coordinate groups of people to help in a time after. So they're taking on funding at the moment as well, but it's all about replanting, rebuilding, getting people involved in managing the environment themselves, which I think is a really good one as well, rather than just funding something.
Do you have any size? I've heard, but I haven't kept up with it. But the size of the devastation through Australia at the moment dwarfs what happened in the Amazon. I think it's dwarfed. Like the amount of parts, the hectares. I had a look a while ago on the Kangaroo Island. Basically, most of that got burnt.
So half of it was gone, and it's an extraordinary large amount, because it's not just in New South Wales or Victoria. It's we've got South Australia, we've got parts of Queensland.
Yeah, we do.
We've got natural fires that are going on in Western Australia that are just natural this time of year, burning fires, which happens. When Captain Cook, one of his logs, when he was going up through Cooktown area, he logged that basically the country was on fire. So bushfires have been around a long time, but not to this level.
Well, those bushfires, I think they were actually, and I'm not sure 100%, so I don't know, but I believe that they were actually done by the Aboriginal people, and they actually did it in a very smart way, they controlled burn, and they didn't take out the animals. You know what I mean? Like they actually looked after the place, because they knew if it got too big that it would cause devastation, which unfortunately seems like what we've got.
As with all things, the original first people, the caretakers of the land, they know it better than anyone. I think we probably should take this opportunity when we're doing these reviews to go back and ask the original first people, the indigenous people, going, shoot, okay, right, what should we do? What should we do? How should we do it? Because they even had Australia only has 3 seasons according to the indigenous. You're either the wet season, the dry, or the build-up. And they have totally different systems through that, and they have different markers of environmental switches, because there's no set dates, of course, for that, especially without the calendars and that sort of stuff. But they had specific markers that these things will happen, and that will initiate the change to the next season. So they didn't have like calendar years; they just had these 3 revolving seasons that would be moving around. And so we need to know how to work with those 3 seasons. When do you do the burn-offs and that sort of stuff, and how do you do the burn-off safely and that sort of stuff, so you're not burning the whole country.
It's incredibly important.
Anyway, and hats off obviously to the fireys. I mean, Lyndall. So Nadine, who's our executive assistant, her husband's a fiery, a volunteer, I think he is, and Lyndall's brother, who works in procurement, her brother is also a volunteer as well too. So it's awesome. It's cool.
And I did a little bit I shared some people's posts and that sort of stuff to bring awareness and that sort of stuff, and then I did my own and that sort of stuff on Instagram or whatever. But genuinely hesitated a fair bit to that, because I hadn't actually gone and been a firefighter myself.
No.
I was actually thinking, shit, if I put this out, because I know what Australia's like, I'm going to get hacked at by not actually volunteering myself as a fireman. So that's why we went through and worked out where my services may actually be useful. Yeah. And as a fat, unfit asthmatic, I don't think the front line is where I belong. No, but you know what I mean. And so, but you go through. So you go through and go like, I know I can do financially. I know we can do spread the word and that sort of stuff. I know there's something like the Blaze Aid is something I can definitely do. The food bank, Queensland food bank, New Zealand, every state's got a food bank that you can go and give them actual food.
Your local churches and charities.
The local, all that sort of stuff. And then I think the Blaze Aid is something that I'd feel confident and comfortable that I would actually be useful, not a burden, and that's something I could really help with. So that's something I'm going to sign up with.
That's good.
Well, and the nice thing as well too is that today I read that there is a massive monsoon trough coming through. Apparently it's going to be blanketing most of the coastal regions all through Australia. So there's going to be some relief. They're still saying that it might help with some of the smaller fires, like they're talking 50 millimetres and that sort of stuff falling, which is pretty cool. Even out at Longreach and other places like that are affected by drought, which Australia's been in bad drought, and we haven't been talking enough about that either. But that's good news, at least a little bit. It's not going to put out the big fires though, so it's not, good, coast is clear, because the amount of rain that they'd need to put out some of those mega fires that are burning down there.
Well, they've predicted no wet season for this particular wet season. They don't believe it's going to come until April.
Well, no, we are now, as of effectively today, it's starting today.
Queensland, we're getting some rain.
No, it's all
everywhere.
New South Wales. So it's starting to come.
We got 30 mils in the Blue Mountains.
Yep.
After the last 24 hours, that was good.
So it's good.
So let's hope and pray that continues.
Just over an inch for the US people.
Yeah.
Good to go there. And a lot of these are caused by dry lightning strikes, which is in fact the clouds trying to earth themselves. It's the same process.
No, we were talking about the earthing before when it builds up the static.
Yeah, because if you think of an atom, if you remember your old chemistry, you've got this nucleus with a couple of things in it, neutrons and protons, and you got these things flying around called electrons. Well, the electrons can get knocked off. And when clouds rub together, they knock the electrons off. And where do they get the electrons from? The Earth.
Right.
So is that what happens when you do that staticky thing?
It knocks the electrons off.
So when you rub your feet on the carpet and then zap your kid.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And you just take electrons from your kid, in your case, or from anyone. And that's what clouds are doing. They're just taking the electrons. So lightning actually comes from the Earth. Or from another cloud. It doesn't, and that electrons, of course, causes that tree or whatever is poking up to basically explode apart, and the friction in that causes the heat and causes, of course, the fires. And that's how fires started. Now humans, when we go and earth ourselves, same things. We take electrons from the ground because we're rubbing up against things. We're enclosed. We're knocking electrons off ourselves.
Yeah, Steve, you got to stop doing that.
It's weird.
And I mean, as I said, the studies just from going out in the garden, you say the simple things. There's things like it reduces inflammation, pain, stress, improves blood flow, energy, sleep. And generates greater well-being, and that's published in a paper just this year.
And how do you know? Like if you're building up with these charges, I mean, you've got to remember that they are on switches for these voltage gates, so you may have trouble to switch off. You get a little bit of restlessness. You have trouble switching off the mind. You'll get like tickly, itchy, like you have to keep moving, restless legs and all that sort of stuff. You really trouble, like electrical stuff will go firing everywhere. And then also too, you can get extremely dry skin. It actually creates like weird dry skin. Of course, Steve-O mentioned anxieties, inflammations and all those sort of things will be much worse.
So I mean,
just get into the routine.
Can I tell you a very quick medical test you can do on yourself? If everyone got a multimeter, does everyone know what that is?
I don't have one.
Yeah, okay. It measures like how voltage, amps, and that sort of thing. You get the positive or negative, it doesn't really matter. Stick it in the earth, damp earth, and then hold the other end and watch and put it on amp meter. and watch the amp meter go up, because amps are just a measure of current flow, which is voltage flow. So you can actually measure your actual potential to the earth. Wow. And then just go out in the earth in the soil when it's damp and that to conduct electricity. For electricity to flow, you need charged particles that are free to move, and water's a good conductor.
So I was going to say, I mean, obviously, Matt, and you talk about it a lot, you feel at home when you're down near the beach. Like in Australia, most of our population is normally within about an hour's drive of the beach, which we're pretty fortunate for that sort of stuff. That would obviously be a great opportunity. Walk with your bare feet along the beach. I mean,
and this is a problem with jet lag too. So one of the biggest tricks for jet lag is when you go travel, that you build up crazy amounts of static, and you definitely need grounding.
Because you're up in the ionosphere, right? I mean, like you actually...
There's more oxidative stress up there than on your heading into Fukushima. No, I'm not even joking. I watched this documentary once about the Fukushima, and they were going through all of these different parts of the Fukushima, and I think I'm saying it wrong. But anyway.
It's pretty fucked there.
It's Fukushima.
Yes, all right.
Just be careful.
That idiot just keeps laughing at me every time I say Fukushima.
You just got to careful how you say it.
I didn't, anyway. And yeah, they were getting like right in amongst it. And they said, look, we actually still haven't had the Geiger counter go. He turned it on in the aeroplane, even though not allowed to, just to get a reading. And it was off the charts. And he says that we still actually haven't hit the level of radiation that we had in the aeroplane on the flight over.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So what about hosties and all that sort of stuff and pilots?
Yeah. And they need constant. And you talk to them in my
antioxidants
clinic,
must be their number one thing.
Yeah, they don't really aware of it because it's not something people want to talk about a lot. Their main concerns upper respiratory tract infections. Wow. And if they can keep their sinus under control, they don't care. But that's where they get a lot of problems with dry skin, bad hair, and all that sort of stuff because you lose the weird charges and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, you need lots of oils, you need lots of keep your electrolytes good, but none of that really works unless you're going to do that grounding. I asked you one day, Steve, I thought I had a genius idea where I was actually going to get my bed and hook up my bed to a cable and just earth it in my PowerPoint. And Steve reminded me that the other reason for that earthing part is if you get a power surge in a different part of the house to actually take the extra electricity. So, if we got a lightning strike, I'd blow up. But
you could get some...
Alternatively, there would be a way of making bed pads that you could sleep on every night that you just have a thing running out through and into the ground where you could actually earth yourself.
What about magnets? People that sleep on magnet beds and that sort of stuff. I mean, what's that doing?
It's reorganising the charges, isn't it? Reorganising your polarity. So, and so when we have a look at every one of your cells, for example, they got positive charges on the outside of the cell and a negative charge on the inside, which is why when the cells get near each other, the positive charges repel and keep them away. Otherwise, our cells would all clump up. We'd have no spaces between our cells. So we have an electrical charge, that's how red blood cells push each other along through the little narrow capillaries. They can never...
Zeta potential.
Yeah, zeta potential.
If you want the
positive charge. And in fact, your liver is responsible during inflammation for taking away the zeta potential off the red blood cells so they get closer, make it easier to clot in case of stress and injury. So, and guess what? The best nutrient.
Yes. You can say that.
Which you get out of the soils and into your foods is magnesium.
Yeah.
Actually can be used to restore the zeta potential by actually controlling the concentration gradient.
That's terrific. That's good. Well done.
So, I mean, would you recommend he's breaking out into a cold sweat? Do you recommend magnets for people?
Sure. Magnets are a unique thing, and everyone's probably heard of an MRI machine where you get magnetic magnets resonance. Actually go through anything. They can go through any part of the body, and that's the beauty about it. X-rays can't. They get smashed by bones. So magnets can actually penetrate the body deeply and can actually, as Matt said, reorganise charge. Because if you think of a magnet, like the Earth is a big magnet, right? Because it's got molten iron in the core. And that, when the Earth's spinning, of course, it moves the iron around, and moving metal causes this big North and South Pole business, which is a big magnet.
So, flat earthers, we have to excuse you here.
Sorry,
you can tune out
I think I've upset them. Yep. But like the Northern Lights, you've seen those, the green Northern Lights?
Never seen them, heard of them.
Yeah, well, I've never seen them either.
Auroras?
Yeah, the Aurora Borealis.
And Aurora Australis.
Yeah, that's the
bumps around the nipples.
No, that's areola. I always get that mixed up in the mayonnaise type thing. What's that called?
Don't delete. Oh, that's clean and nice.
No, it was nice.
But what is mayonnaise on your areola?
No, what's it called? Aioli. Yeah.
Avioli?
Aioli.
Aioli. Oh, the dip.
Oh, yeah.
Aioli.
Oh, yeah. Around your nipples.
The body part.
What the fuck are you talking about? Magnetic Earth spinning
and so those northern. But basically, what our big magnet does is it repels the solar wind that's coming off the sun, so it protects the Earth from this ionising radiation, and that's what our magnet of an Earth does.
Well,
and that's the Aurora Borealis is when it comes into the Earth.
But that's changing apparently. The amount of radiation that's the solar winds and all the rest of it. The stuff that's coming off the sun has been changing. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. It goes at 11-year cycle.
And we get more solar flares.
Activity. Yeah. You know about sunspot activity. That's a bit too physicsy, I thought, for this. But so sunspot activity.
Our listeners are very, very intelligent, Steve.
The more sunspots, the more charge you can get in the ionosphere, which excites nerds who are into radio because you can bounce signals off them and talk around the world a lot easier.
But if they're too big, though, Steve, it can disrupt satellites.
Absolutely. It disrupts satellite badly. So, but the up past the ionosphere is...
We need to do a podcast on the sun.
We do, and we should talk about. Well, the interesting thing is
Superman's
that 80% of suns in our universe are binary.
About 80 to 90, most of them, or 3. Like have you heard of Alpha Centauri, the closest sun?
Yeah, I actually have.
Yes?
Like, out of all the, apart from the bumps around the nipples, Alpha Centauri is the other thing I recognise.
Betelgeuse.
What?
Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse.
Betelgeuse is the big red giant.
Never really liked
It was the
movie.
biggest sun that we knew of until recently. It's been dwarfed now, apparently.
Yeah.
So.
Betelgeuse is a giant red sun.
Ah.
But anyway,
it's in Scorpio.
But
Anyway.
ours is binary, and that's where planet Nibiru or planet X, when it comes back, is on a 3,600 year elliptical. So that asteroid belt that's in the middle, of our solar system used to be a
Kuiper
planet.
belt, yep.
Yep. But what happened was when this planet, like Halley's Comet, every 76 years, this planet Nibiru or planet X.
I saw Halley's Comet.
Yeah,
It's
right.
86
so did I.
years.
I remember
I think.
86.
Yeah, that's right.
No, 75.
76. 76, I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure it's 75.
Yeah, because it was 1910 the last time they saw it, and then 1986.
Okay.
Okay.
Google that
Could be right.
Yeah. Fact check that.
Fact check.
Yeah.
Halley's
So,
Comet comes around.
And planet
75.
Nibiru is on a 3,600. They also call it the Horned Planet or Planet X as well too. So what happened last time it came through? Well, we think is it actually.
For fuck's sake, they should just say
Her phone
every
doesn't go far that back.
75 years it comes back.
Yeah, 75 to 76 years.
Oh
Yeah.
I was right.
I was right.
Yeah.
So
It's 75 or maybe 76.
No,
That's
no.
the way I'm reading it,
okay,
hearing
you,
it.
You take
read.
it any way you can get it. But anyway, what I was going
Well.
to say though is that in terms of when it comes back again, this is do what they call a near Earth orbit. So it'll come, and then we're going to have
Halley?
earthquake. No. Planet X,
Oh.
Nibiru, the Horned Planet,
Sorry,
and it's going to pick up all of the asteroids with it when it comes
Oh,
through,
shit.
and that's what's going to hit the Earth, which is where we also get wormwood, which is the revelationary destruction, massive comet that
Revelations
falls.
in
Revelations,
the New
yeah.
Testament.
No, shit, we're back to religion
Yeah,
again.
it's great. It's fantastic.
Oh, no, I love it, but I don't think we're going to keep it in,
I
are
love
we?
it when science and religion sort of overlaps.
Yeah,
no,
no.
that's as far as I'm going with it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's like, I love that shit.
Yeah, it's
But
great.
Alpha Centauri, the binary star, it's one of the brightest stars in the sky, apart from
Oh,
Sirius, which is not the
Yeah,
brightest star.
I'm serious too about it.
Yeah, Sirius star. That's a very bright one. But actually, that is a binary star, and they just slot that around. And
Serious?
our sun. You want another fact about our sun? It's a second generation sun. It's already exploded.
Get fucked.
Yeah.
Get out, Steve.
How the hell
I
do you
do
know
not
this
know
shit?
that.
You are
it's
so
a second
old.
generation star.
Yeah?
It's only been around 5 billion years.
Oh, really, Steve?
Yeah.
See, well, I
Because
disagree.
the Earth is made from the first explosion of the supernova. That's why we've got the heavy elements here, like iron. Oh, well, that's science.
I'm going to
anyway.
sit here waiting for the comments. I'm going to sit here and eat popcorn. We got the atheist and the Christian talking about the creation. I don't know what I was doing then. I actually took popcorn
Eating
out of my
popcorn.
box and put it over there. I don't know why I did that.
Matt, you're doing it wrong. Yeah,
That's better?
That's better.
I'm doing such a
And you know
little
what the
bowl
thing
of
is
popcorn.
that Steve and I disagree fundamentally on a lot of stuff, but yet we're bosom buddies, aren't we?
Yeah.
Bosom buddies.
Well, I think we're done. I mean, Matt's got a great idea about earthing yourself. There was a study done where they put a reverse polarity of 60 hertz across someone sleeping in bed.
Yeah.
And hertz, by the way, is a frequency.
So why'd they do 60? Is that what we typically resonate at?
Power points of 50 to 60.
Oh.
Okay. You've heard of AC or alternating current?
Yes.
That alternates at 50 to 60 times
Oh.
a second, from positive to negative, positive to negative. That's alternating current. But the alternating current thing is fascinating.
Oh,
because
yeah,
it's
get back to that.
50 hertz or 50 to 60 hertz in Australia it is. And of course, if you put a negative polarity to that under the bed, in other words, cancel that out, because waves go like that, sine wave, if you remember that from physics, then if you can reverse that actually earths someone and you get positive health benefits again.
And it worked?
Worked tyrannically in a study.
Wow. So is there devices that we can buy that can
Yeah,
do this?
there are. The best one is to go out and stand on wet grass, basically. This is the
Is that
device.
right?
Now, I
Stand
get a
on
little
wet
bit
grass.
confused.
Wet grass, because soil has got a lot of minerals in it and it conducts electricity, so you'll take your electrons from the earth.
Steve-O, you know when we talk about these electrical fields and waves,
Yep, waves.
and how does that differ from sound waves? So, for example, if I need to be, like you just talked about doing a 60 hertz thing. Now, what if I was to make a noise at 60 hertz? Would that do the same thing?
No, it wouldn't, because that's the compression of air molecules.
Yeah,
sound
right.
doesn't travel in space, but radio does.
Yeah.
Because you need air molecules to push sound around.
Yeah.
And sound travels faster in water, like 3 times faster underwater, because there's more stuff there to push through. We need stuff.
Yeah.
Radio waves doesn't need stuff to transmit power. And you have a spectrum. The electricity and magnetism are pretty much the same thing in the radio spectrum.
Yeah.
And that's called the electromagnetic spectrum. And they're interchangeable. So a wave, like a magnet, is completely compatible with electricity. In fact,
Yep.
if you get a magnet and
But
push
not
it through,
sound?
No, sound. It's totally different. It's the pushing of air molecules along.
Yeah, right.
It's a complete difference. Radio waves are different again.
Yeah.
And there's longer. They're like 80 meters is a radio wave that you can talk on, like a thing. So it can be a lot longer. Sound waves at 50 hertz or 80 hertz are actually, just pushing of air molecules. And that's a very low note, 80
So
hertz.
is there benefits then from listening to radio therapy, like music therapy and frequency
there's studies
therapy?
on that. Absolutely.
But listening to it though, like as in terms of resetting.
Well,
the
there
brain.
is a 40 hertz. They found 40 hertz is the most, which is sound. That's the most anti-inflammatory and healing frequency.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data on frequencies from the microcurrent stuff and everything.
There is.
That'll be bad.
So what about how, in that sense with an opera singer and they hit that certain frequency and they can shatter a crystal glass.
That works.
So that is the changing of the resonant frequency with it, matching the resonant frequency of the crystal and causing it to resonate.
Yeah, resonate to a point where it
Can you do that with electricity or only sound?
Only sound, because it's actually a physical.
So Steve, your homework, I want you to create the perfect sleeping environment utilizing both sound and electronic frequency.
I reckon I could do that.
Magnetic
and
frequency.
Earthing.
And earthing.
Can I use earthing?
Yep. So and I want to know how to do it and where I can buy it.
All right.
Done.
I'll look that up.
You're fun.
So we got to block out light. We've got to remove our phones from next to our
and I've
bed.
got a blanket that actually blocks other electromagnetic radiation coming in.
Does
so
it?
I'll give you that.
Wow.
Like a Faraday cage.
It's bloody noisy
gosh.
and
mine's more like a Dutch oven.
well, that's what it becomes like by the morning.
Yeah.
Whoa. I'll tell you something funny. My wife is now addicted to audiobooks. My wife's addicted to audiobooks, which is the best because she sits there with her earphones and she can't hear me fart. So I just sit there and I just drop these farts. She's like, audiobooks, and that's just like, oh, what the hell? Like, it's ultimate. It's like everything's silent. I just sit there like this.
I can smell the sulfur.
You might have to sleep like under a Faraday blanket or a Faraday cage. So
Faraday.
I don't like the idea of sleeping in a cage, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
The Faraday cage blocks out all radio frequencies.
Right.
And that's what that does.
Actually, I just had some good stories.
Do you know who sleeps in a Faraday cage?
Who?
Your mate.
Who's my mate?
Ben.
Greenfield?
Yeah.
He sleeps in a Faraday cage. He did say that.
Yeah.
He does.
Oh.
His whole house is like a Faraday cage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it seems you won't be able to talk on his mobile phone from his house.
No, he only plugs it in from time to, or switches it on from time to time.
Right.
But most of the time he keeps it off. He absolutely lives what he preaches.
Oh,
Good
man,
on him.
it's cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm going to go holiday there.
That's good. It's fascinating, this whole thing. I reckon doing a podcast on the sun.
I reckon we should do a podcast talking about the sun, talking about our place in space and time in regards to how to actually manage that.
Physics.
Yeah, because I mean, this is big because it involves everything from vestibular injuries and inner ear to work out where you are into mineral deposits, and it's really cool, fascinating, and it goes through a lot of physics.
I don't believe in physics, Steve. I can't see it.
You can't see
I'm
it?
joking. I'm joking.
Someone said you can't see oxygen, so therefore they don't believe in it. And it's kind of like, well, what if you cool it to negative 216 degrees and turn it into a blue liquid, and you can see oxygen?
You can.
It just depends on the temperature.
Whack them with it then.
Yeah, you can pour it on them.
Mm-hmm.
Pour liquid. In fact, you can put liquid
Steve.
nitrogen on warts. That's one of the treatments for warts, liquid nitrogen.
Okay.
And solar keratosis. So there you
What
go.
percentage of our atmosphere is nitrogen?
About 80.
I knew you'd know it.
Yeah, he's a smart ass.
About 20% oxygen and it's minuscule 0.04 CO2.
Nobody likes a smart ass, Steve.
It's about 80. Someone will say 79.
Someone say that. Fools. Idiots. A fool would say 79 when you're saying 80.
No, it's about 79.
It's like saying Ali's come. I don't know if it's 75 or 76 years. It's obviously 75.
76.
It was last year in 86.
Actually, can we find out, is it closer to 75 or 76? Because
He's never going to let this out. Well, Steve has said 80 something, so I'm stoked. We can just take this. We can share the trophy. You can have the trophy this year. I'll take it next season.
You got it, because I remember it being 1986.
All right.
You know what?
What?
No, it doesn't.
No, because it'll be a certain number of years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, seconds. So what I want to do then...
But then again, it doesn't... how long does it loiter in the sky?
Because we haven't...
Because it takes a little while.
That's right, because we could be closer or further away from it. Well, we'll come back with the answer. Stay tuned for the exciting...
What was the question?
How often...
76 years.
Yeah, so we'll come back with the answer next episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, it's good to kick off the year. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back with some more serious, in-depth episodes next week, as opposed to your
And more
trifle.
shirt matching.
Oh,
Yes.
you guys are just weird. Seriously, it was very strange.
I had boob sweat.
I just changed because I saw you guys in the blues. I just bought one
He
today.
freaked out. He thought he missed some of it. Yeah, I know.
I
He's
had to get my gear off in the office there, and Brooklyn was just taking photos. It was quite embarrassing.
Yeah,
Shame him. That's because I've told everyone about your
Brooklyn.
nipples. No, seriously, even again
They
this
are
morning.
strange, Steve.
It's good. It's funny.
They are very strange.
It's because you put those stickers over them to cover them. Everyone's suspicious.
Anyway,
It's a-
next
and
time
it
we'll
makes
go. Anyway, thanks, guys. Good chat. There may have been a little bit of editing, which is why we've got the laughing there. Just a small smidgen,
beep of
tiny bit. And we'll be back next week with some more.
See you
Thanks,
next
guys.
week.
Bye.
All right. Thing where it's now really inappropriate.
Inappropriate play school.
Inappropriate joke.
Steve would win. He would definitely.
You know
be the
what we
host of
need to do?
Inappropriate
We need
Play.
to find some of the most ridiculously inappropriate phrases that we can possibly find and get Steve just to read them. Now, maybe delete that bit. Now, I was right, motherfucker.
Was 1910 the last time it came through?
I was very noisy. That might get edited out. I swore. Now let's just stop, everyone.